thankful to the office bearers of the Rayagada Bar Association. It's also giving me the opportunity to meet the Bar Associations of Gurupur and Bisham Cutter. This is a trip I've been wanting to make for a long time, the districts in the south. I've heard so much about the beautiful countryside of Orissa, and today I saw it for myself. The last 2 days has been a visual treat. Starting yesterday morning from here, I arrived by train, and I've covered the 4 districts. So you've followed the events, I'm sure, virtually. Your lawyers have participated in the hands-on training. It's a moment of change, it's a moment of positive change all over. And the entire Indian judiciary, I think, is on the verge of an important transition to a new phase. This is building on the earlier experience. The challenges that we all faced during COVID-19, 2 years virtually has been lost. Precious time has been lost. But what is happening is that neither lawyers nor judges have stopped working. During the COVID times, lawyers, in spite of the risks to their health, have participated in hearing of urgent matters. Judges, in spite of risks to their health, have held their courts. Technology has certainly helped. It has helped us hold the virtual courts. It has helped lawyers participate virtually. And speaking for myself, I think this is a new trend that has been launched because it has shown us the possibilities of courts functioning not just in physical mode, but in virtual mode as well. In the initial phase of this COVID-19 pandemic, there were genuine doubts and very valid doubts whether it is benefiting only a few lawyers and it is leaving out the remaining of the bar, whether it is leaving out lawyers who cannot afford smart devices, lawyers who do not have PCs, laptops, smartphones, will they be able to participate? Many lawyers I know, because I've come through 2 high courts, Delhi and Punjab and Haryana. I know for a fact that many young lawyers could not continue working with their seniors in their offices, had to give up the profession for a temporary phase. Some of them went back to their villages. So the bar has had a very tough time. Apart from the fact that many lawyers have lost their lives during this pandemic. In the Orissa High Court, since January 4th when I took over, there have been numerous Friday afternoons when we've had to have references for lawyers who've passed away. So the pandemic has indeed taken its toll. But with every challenge, there lies an opportunity. And that opportunity, I'm glad to know, has been seized upon both by lawyers and judges. Every morning, sir, you must be watching my court. Every morning, half an hour is devoted to mentioning of matters. So, I get at least 20 mentionings virtually. And then an equal number, perhaps slightly more, physically. And the lawyers who mention virtually are not just the elderly lawyers. There are many young lawyers utilizing the opportunity of virtual hearing. Likewise, physical hearing, it is not only the young lawyers who are coming for physical hearing, but even the elderly lawyers. So I do not see any age divide as was thought. It's popularly felt that the younger bar prefers physical hearing, whereas the senior bar prefers virtual hearing. My own experience, sir, is not quite the same. I find many young lawyers have now suddenly realized that they can have their range of practice. There are so many tribunals which require young talent. So young lawyers are able to organize their work. Some of them appear in the High Court on the same day they appear in various tribunals. Some of them appear even in other high courts. And I'm talking lawyers in the 30 years age group. You'll be happy to know that in the new branches of law, particularly GST law, I'm sure there are practitioners here specializing in goods and services tax, the earlier sales tax practitioners. They will tell you how many young lawyers, some of them who have done the chartered accountant course, CAs, they have come into this GST practice and they are in great demand all over the country. This young bar appears not just in one high court but in several courts. And it's possible for them to do because of virtual hearings. So virtual hearing has thrown up one more opportunity for lawyers. So we should welcome it, we should not be wary of it. The more the lawyers get opportunities to appear, and not just in their own courts but other courts, I think lawyers should welcome it. Virtual hearings has made it possible for a Rayagada lawyer to appear in a Cuttack court. It is actually possible. What we are doing now with all these hands-on training is another step in the same direction. Apart from virtual hearings, which is anyway taking place, we're making it possible for cases to be filed. E-filing of cases is now a reality. And the push for this has come from the Supreme Court. The E-Committee of the Supreme Court has been working over the several years now. I think one major push happened during Justice Madan Lokur's time, but Justice Chandrachud is carrying on now in the same vein. And COVID-19 has accelerated the pace of that change. So what we have been doing in the Orissa High Court after I took over is only to push it in the same direction. This is a change that is taking place all over the country. I am happy to say that Orissa is taking a lead. Orissa is doing much better than many other states. But that is because, and I think the applause is to yourselves. The applause is to the bar. The bar has welcomed these changes. We started the training, hands-on training in the High Court. And we had, I think, 3 or 4 training sessions so far. We had a special training for the Advocate General's office. We've had special trainings for the Central Government Panel Lawyer's office. Both those offices have responded positively when we said that all filing by the state government and the central government will compulsory be only e-filing. They agreed. And they could not have agreed unless we gave them training. Likewise, we will do these changes gradually. What I want to assure each lawyer here is, any of these moves is not a substitute for any of the practices that you have. Your physical hearings, your physical filing, all can continue. This is an additional avenue for you. So today, if some client who has lost in the court, district court here, who has lost in the High Court, wants to file a case in the Supreme Court, it is not necessary that you should travel to Delhi for that purpose. It is possible that you can prepare your petition, contact an advocate and record in Delhi and have it e-filed. This is a real possibility, sir. These possibilities did not exist earlier. This is not a realm of hypothesis. This is reality. Today you can actually watch hearings in the Supreme Court. Your client can watch what is happening in his case or her case in the Supreme Court. The client can know what is the outcome of a case. Earlier, the client was entirely dependent on the lawyer to know what happened in a case on a particular day's hearing. Today, the client is able to go on the net and look at the National Judicial Data Grid. I'm sure many lawyers here are already familiar with it. My judicial officers are familiar with it. That National Judicial Data Grid gives you information on every case in every court in the district courts in the country. So today, if you want to know in the Rayagada SDJM's court, a particular case, what is the outcome of today's hearing in that case, the order will be uploaded, or information about the hearing will be uploaded at least. Even if the order itself is not uploaded, your client, in all probability, if he is smart enough or she is smart enough, and they are increasingly becoming very smart, sir. I must tell all of you that, I'm sure you already realize that. They get to know the next date, they get to know what has happened even before the lawyer does. So today the client is able to tell the lawyer what the hearing is, what has happened in the hearing. So it has become a more transparent process. Many of us in the bar should welcome this transparency. Many of us in the judiciary should welcome this transparency. This is something that has become the need of the hour. Technology is being used by several people. When I decided to go live streaming of my court, there were many apprehensions expressed, including apprehensions by the bar. What will people feel when they see a lawyer arguing and maybe not making his point? What will they feel? The judges lose their temper and say a few things on the bench. But all those apprehensions were allayed. Now the live streaming has gone on for at least 4 months without a hitch. And many people are welcoming that live streaming. Every day, if you go on the YouTube site, Orissa High Court has a YouTube site, the number of visitors to the live streaming is always in excess of 1,500. which means it's not just the bar or the clients watching the matters, because I have only 60 matters in my court. Even if you have two parties and you have two lawyers, the hearings, the visits should not exceed 500. So 1,500 people are watching what is happening in the Orissa High Court. They want to watch what is happening in the Orissa High Court. And I think the public has a right to know what is happening in the courts. Of course, we respect privacy. When there's a habeas corpus petition, when there's a matrimonial petition, when there's a petition involving sensitive issues, I have instructed my technical team to stop the live streaming. I control the live streaming. I keep it for public interest matters, I keep it for certain other kinds of matters. So the control is with the judge. So there is no danger of any misuse of this live streaming. It is welcomed by the public. It's welcomed, you must understand, it's welcomed by law students. Many law students have told me how they're watching the court proceedings to know more about the court proceedings, how judges conduct themselves, how lawyers argue their cases. We are only becoming part of a global family now. Just like India is becoming part of the global family, the Indian legal fraternity is becoming part of the global fraternity. If today a lawyer in Rayagada wants to know what cases are being argued in the Canadian Supreme Court and wants to watch the proceedings in the Canadian Supreme Court, the Rayagada lawyer can do that. Opportunity I did not have, probably the office bearers of the present Bar Association did not have in their young days as lawyers, struggling lawyers, but today's young lawyer has that opportunity. And it's an opportunity not just for the young lawyer, it's an opportunity for every lawyer. There is one judge in Connecticut in the United States, and he has his proceedings live streamed. He deals with traffic offenses. I don't know, sir, if you watched it. It's wonderful to watch that. He tells you how to interact with ordinary clients. Clients who have got a speeding ticket, clients who are hauled up for drunken driving. The way he conducts the proceeding is so humane, so compassionate, that you have a lot of things. As a judge, I learn a lot of things watching that court. And I'm sure as lawyers, you will learn a lot. Clients are watching these proceedings. I get forwards from relatives and friends, not lawyers, saying this is something interesting that has happened in that traffic court in US. Would you want to watch it? So today we are talking of a global environment, and no lawyer should be outside that global environment. I am addressing this specifically to every young lawyer in this audience. Today is the right time to be in the profession of law. Don't feel disheartened if you have not made any money in the last 1 month. Don't feel disheartened. Money will always find its way to the hardworking lawyer. This is an advice I got as a young lawyer. On the cases I worked very hard, I never got paid. But I learned a lot. And for that learning, there is no value. There is no money. It's invaluable, that learning that you get. I sat in court, heard many senior lawyers argue cases, learned through that process. As we grow older, and I'm sure this will be shared with also the elderly lawyers and more experienced lawyers here, for working very little, you get paid a lot. That's the irony of the profession. Everybody goes through that. But what is wonderful about law is that you learn about life. Not about your own life, but several lives different from yourself. And learning law and learning to practice law is a very humbling experience. We just heard how Rayagada is home to vulnerable tribal groups. Not only Rayagada, Koraput, Malkangiri, Nabarangpur, largely the population is of vulnerable tribal groups. They have their rights recognized in the Forest Rights Act, but they are not aware of those things. They are not aware of the 5th schedule to the Constitution. Which is why as lawyers we have a huge responsibility. Many of these clients may not be paying clients. Many of these clients may not afford the proceedings in court. But as lawyers we have a responsibility. So when lawyers join the profession here in these districts, one must salute them. They are doing it as a spirit of service, as a spirit of discharging a professional responsibility. It's not just for making money. It's not just for earning a livelihood. So that distinction between law as a career, as a livelihood, and law as a service profession, I think it is tested most in these kind of districts where you do not have paying clients. Clients are always finding themselves on the wrong side of the law. In these 4 districts, the unique characteristic I find, criminal cases are as 10 times as many as civil cases. So there are many people whose liberties are at stake. Jails are overflowing. So the responsibility of the lawyer is immense. The responsibility of knowing the latest to the law is immense. The responsibility of honing your skills as a lawyer, that's immense. Many things that you've learned in the bar so far were not taught to you in the classroom. You learned it by working with a senior. You learned it by watching what happens in the court. You can now learn more by watching what is happening in other courts. Not just other courts in the country. I think there are 3 or 4 high courts that have started live streaming. I think it started with Gujarat. Then you have Madhya Pradesh. You had Karnataka. And of course you have Orissa. But you can also watch courts elsewhere, which is what I'm trying to tell you, that there are many courts functioning all over the world, which are live streamed, whose proceedings you can watch, and you can learn a lot. So today, the scope for learning is immense. I don't know how many of you have heard the word Khan Academy. Has anyone heard of Khan Academy here? Yes. Has anyone heard of Coursera? Coursera. Yes. See, that elderly gentleman knows Coursera. Sir, hats off to you, sir. I think give him a big hand. Yes. So this is the curious mind that has gone and searched where I can learn more. You know, good musicians, when they tell you about their life stories, Bhimsen Joshi, I don't know if you've heard of Bhimsen Joshi speak about his life. He went from guru to learn music. He served those gurus free. I mean, he was from a very poor family. But his thirst for knowledge and music was so intense that he went from guru to guru. Today, many gurus are there on the internet. So one guru is this Coursera, one guru is this Khan Academy, where you can enroll and take courses for free. So the many, I want to tell you, legal knowledge is not the sole purview of a few lawyers or judges. Legal knowledge has been made universal now. Anybody, let us say he is retired from government service or retired as a policeman, he feels that he should know more about intellectual property rights. He can enroll in the Khan Academy, no cost. It's all free. He can enroll in Coursera and do a course on patents law. He will write answer papers for questions set up by that site, not for being awarded gold medal or degree, just to test his knowledge. So that way, a lawyer today has a huge opportunity to focus on any branch of the law that he or she wants to. And that brings me to some very niche areas that are developing in law. One, of course, is cybercrime. I think all of you have sensed this change in the last 5-10 years. The number of cybercrimes has gone up, and it is not the sole purview of major metropolitan cities. It is now affecting villagers and villages and even the tribal population that we are talking about. They have mobile phones, their children have mobile phones. There are things which are spread viral on mobile phones which affects their lives, which affects their privacy, which affects their liberty. So I have said this very often and sorry to be repeating it, but today's lawyer has no choice but to know how this technology works, has no choice but to learn about the information technology law, the IT Act, has no choice to know about cybercrime, has no choice to know how the forensics works. I have a phone, it has a huge memory. How is that memory stored? Which part of it is a permanent memory? Which is a random access memory? How does one search for information in the phone? Even if you delete things from your phone, the phone does not forget. It has a layers of memory. There are forensic experts who can unearth whatever is being erased. So this is something that you should all be informed about. If you're looking to have law courses or law academies, it may not exist. But these courses, these academies exist on the net. There are experts in India who can teach wonderfully on these topics, but as a bar association, what you will have to do is seek out those experts. Those lectures can be given online. Those experts do not have to travel to Rayagada. But the bar in Rayagada will immensely benefit if the bar association is able to organize a series of lectures on electronic evidence, on cybercrime, because these are the today's issues, and these will grow more and more. No lawyer in Rayagada should be unaware of how Section 65B operates, how to prove an email, how to prove an SMS, how to prove a WhatsApp chat, how to preserve data that is there on the mobile phone. The policeman has the data, You as a defense lawyer do not have the same data. When you are given that as part of the charge sheet, how should you study it? What kind of questions will you ask in cross-examination? Unless you know the law, unless you know the technology, you cannot have effective cross-examination of that expert witness or even of the IO. So it is very essential that every bar association organizes special classes. You don't have to call the classes special lectures on niche areas. Another area which I mentioned about yesterday in one of the bar association talks was the surrogacy law. Has anyone heard of the new surrogacy bill that's been tabled in Parliament? I want you people to be curious about these issues. Surrogacy is a major issue that is developing in India. I'm sure it is developing in Orissa too. These again affect rights of people. You request a woman to bear the child. The couple requests the woman to bear the child. She lends her womb to carry the child. She delivers the child. The child is born of the ovarian eggs and sperm of the couple. But she has given birth to the child. Does she have rights? She is the biological mother in a sense. But does she have rights? So the bill seeks to resolve these issues. These issues have already come before the court. But these issues are going to be more and more before the courts. As lawyers, you cannot afford not to know about these issues. This is today's society's issues, sir. Today's young generation's issues. As lawyers, we must respond to that need. Whether we approve, disapprove is not the point. No lawyer is a judge. That he leaves it to the judge to decide whether it is a crime committed, not committed, whether a wrong committed, not committed. He presents the issue before the court. He does not judge his client. He wants justice for his client. Correct? So you have to be fully informed of these cutting-edge issues. It is affecting a large number of people who themselves may not be aware of the consequences. Like today, there is a move to increase the age for marriage for girls to 21. Do you know what the impact of that would be? We keep talking of judicial impact assessment. I think it is the lawyers who first recognize what that impact is going to be on courts. What kinds of cases will come to the courts? How many more people will be in the criminal law network? And that will increase the work of the lawyers, increase the work of the court, put a lot of pressure on the jails. So you can see the impact one change in the law will have on the working of lawyers, the working of courts, the condition in prisons. Over the last 10 years, we've had many such laws which make it impossible for anyone to get bail. Particularly the sedition laws, the NDPS laws. As lawyers, we are deeply aware of all of this. As judges, we are aware of what the impact of these laws has been on the judicial system. So as lawyers, you need to engage actively in these issues. Form your own study circles, sir. Because you're not going to get this knowledge from law academies. You're not going to get it in the law colleges because you've all passed out of those colleges. You need on-the-job learning, as you heard the expression, on-the-job learning. Lawyers need to increase their knowledge base. One way of increasing it is peer learning. You learn it from other lawyers. One is to learn it from the global community, which is why I go back to that theme that you have to be connected with each other, but connected to the world. There's an immense wealth of knowledge, immense wealth of information out there on the net. You should know how to harness it for the benefit of your clients. This I've said very often. Unless you have a well-informed bar, unless you have a strong bar, you cannot have a strong judiciary. It is wrong for you to presume that judges have all the answers. Judges do not have all the answers. Judges have come from the same law colleges as you've come through. Many judges have come from the same bar as you have. So the levels of learnings of judges more or less mirrors the level of learning of the bar. If the bar is well informed, if the bar is responsible, if the bar is strong, if the bar is independent, if the bar is fearless, you can reasonably expect a similar judiciary, similar kind of judges who will be well informed, who will be fearless, who will be independent. So somewhere when you look at the judges and feel that they are not up to the mark, this is not the kind of judiciary we should be having, maybe it's a reflection of where we are at the bar. So I think it's, when we say bar and bench are the parts of the same coin, what we also mean is that the levels of proficiency in both must simultaneously increase. So while we are organizing these hands-on training for lawyers, we are also training the judges. Because the vision is this, sir. This technology is going to be harnessed to improve the efficiency of the judiciary. But it will not really work unless lawyers are on board and judges are on board. If there's a paperless court, equally you need a lawyer to be able to argue from his phone or from a tablet or from a laptop. We need lawyers to be at that level. It is not that the lawyer who does not have this will be left out. No, that lawyer will also have his place. No, I don't need a bank. I don't need. Am I audible to all of you? So that's fine. So the idea is that we don't exclude any lawyer, but we give more possibilities, more options to the lawyer. But knowing how technology works, knowing what the latest is in law and in life of people around us is very, very essential. Many transactions today take place on the net. WhatsApp chat has become the main source of communication. You open your email, you may find an appointment letter, you may open an email and find the firing letter. So when you have to prove these things in court, this is where the lawyers come in, the judges come in. You're suddenly scratching your head, how is this to be proved, right? Likewise, my husband abused me. The husband says my wife spoke all unpardonable things about my parents. Spoke where? On a WhatsApp chat. See my phone, look at what she is saying. Now as a lawyer, are you supposed to take a photograph of that and present it to the court? Or are you supposed to collect it as electronic evidence? That your client is asking you. You can't ask your client. Client will say, see, this is what has happened to me. Now you figure out what you want to do. So as a lawyer, you should know. This is why I'm saying, you don't have a choice anymore, sir, as a lawyer. Society has changed. We must move along with the change. It is not for us to welcome or not welcome this change. Change has already happened. We may have our own personal views. We may say, no, sir, society is getting spoiled. Youth is going astray. Somebody will tell you, sir, Socrates said the same thing in 330 BC. So this is nothing new. Every society, the elder people will tell you, sir, what has happened in my glorious old days. Everything was so rosy, so nice, and look today what has happened. Even I started sounding an old man nowadays. I say, no, those were the lovely days when I used to run around with my senior, used to learn so much from his chamber, and today they are not paying the juniors, they are not caring about juniors. I hear all those stories. But the fact is that we have to move with the change. Society has moved ahead, technology has swept over society, we acknowledge those changes, we adapt ourselves. If we do not adapt, then we will be thrown by the wayside. Not by the judges or by other lawyers, by society. If the legal profession has to remain relevant, it has to find answers to society's problems. If the legal profession compounds the problems of society, then the legal profession will be shunned. So if you ask a person who has 1,000 rupees, sir, how would you like to spend this 1,000 rupees? You can 100% be sure not even 5 rupees will be kept aside for paying to a lawyer. Given a choice, nobody wants to do anything with a lawyer or with the court or with the policeman. Because the impression they have is that if you go to a lawyer, you are finished. If you go to the court, you are finished. If you go to the policeman, you are finished. So if we have to actively work at changing this image. We are trying to do it in the courts. We are trying to see how we can treat people with dignity, how we can reduce the waiting time, which is why this virtual court initiative, so that a client knows, a witness knows that my evidence will be recorded at 3 p.m. on 28th December. Not that I will come on the morning of 28th December, I do not know if the judge is going to sit, I do not know if the PP will arrive, I do not know if my own lawyer will arrive, and when the judge arrives, that these people will be there, and my case will be called out. At the end of the day, I won't even know the next date. So there are so many uncertainties for the client who comes to the court. We have to both work together, sir, to reduce that uncertainty, to project the image of both the bar and the bench, of the judiciary, of the courts, as something that will help the clients and not something which will oppress the clients. They're already feeling oppressed by the law, by the administration, by the police, and when they come to the court, they should not feel even more oppressed. So how do we collaborate? How do we work together to make the experience of coming to a court a rewarding one? Even if it is not rewarding, at least the person should not go back saying, why did I come to this court? So that image we should actively work to change. It changes the image of lawyers, changes the image of the judges. We must be a working institution. We are a public institution. We are answerable to the public. If the public does not trust us, if we lose the trust of the public, our legitimacy is gone. But the humongous task of delivering that constitutional promise which you read in the preamble of equal and fair justice, that humongous task is in our hands. So that is our responsibility. The public expects us to discharge that responsibility. So whatever are the failings on this side or that side, we come into an understanding, we work together, we improve the image, we deliver justice. Now I'll come to the more things that you're waiting to hear. All this is lecture, like sermons. So these representations that we have, we are already examining each one of them. You can be rest assured, the present chairperson of the Subordinate Court Building Committee is Justice Sarangi. Almost every morning Justice Sarangi will have a chat. We'll say, sir, what about finding land for the Baripada Bar? What about finding land for the Rayagada Court? So every day, it's part of the routine conversation. Just we say good morning, good evening, good night. It's almost like a routine conversation. So we are constantly looking at options. Some options which existed earlier no longer are available. We are trying to see if there are other options. But I want to give you one assurance, if I may call it that. Whatever step we take, we will keep you in the picture. There's no question of us deciding and then conveying to you the decision without you knowing it. You will be in the picture, because the earlier experience has been this. We take a decision in all good intentions for the bar, and the bar says, no, this is not what we want. So we don't want, at least I definitely do not want that. I want the bar to be consulted, the bar to be there at all stages, so that something which is acceptable to the bar is what we want to do. So that that project, whenever it starts, can go on unhindered and be delivered on time. Rayagada does need a new court. Jaipur has a new court. Malkangiri has a new court. Nabarangpur has a new court. There's no reason why Rayagada should not have a new court. It will definitely have a new court. I'm hoping it will happen in Noida. And even Visam Katak and Gunpur, sir, have gone through the pendency figures, and there is a need to revisit to have more judges or more courts. We'll definitely examine that, and whatever is practically able to be done in a short while, we'll definitely do it. I'm very encouraged wherever I have gone, the way the bar has responded, that you volunteered, 10 of you volunteered to undergo training yesterday in Jaipur. Is a big step in the positive direction. These 10 lawyers, you should, all the rest of the bar should make them talk to you. I'll ask the bar president to organize a session. Those who underwent training, please talk to your colleagues. Encourage your other colleagues to go for the next round of training. This training will be a continuous process. It is not a one-off process. Basically what we are doing is placing computers in a room, sitting with the lawyer and teaching the lawyer how to do the e-filing. So that's a wonderful opportunity, because your teachers are going to be judges. Judges who've been trained in doing this. It's an opportunity for them too, that to share knowledge with the bar. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity. In 2-3 months' time, we expect some of you as lawyers to become the master trainers, so that every lawyer in this bar gets trained. So that is how we move forward, that's how we keep up with the times, and that's how we continue to be relevant to the society. We must stay relevant, sir. We must not have a negative image painted about us. Many people tell me, sir, I'm afraid to introduce myself as a lawyer. Why? Because all kinds of questions are asked. I believe you guys do this, I believe you guys do that. Some judges tell me, sir, I don't tell anyone I'm a judge. So this has become the burning topic today. On the television, everywhere, the performance of judges, the performance of lawyers, what is happening in cases, this has become a burning discussion. And we must be conscious of this. We must discharge our responsibility that the Constitution places on us. And I'm very encouraged by what I've seen in the last 12 months in Orissa. I'm sure the Orissa's legal fraternity's future is bright. There are some very young lawyers who are doing well, and they are bringing fresh energy into the bar. And there are young judges who are doing very well. You can see for yourself how well they are doing. They've come from the 5-year law courses, and they have idealism, they have commitment, they have dedication. And there are more women. I should not, that's my another favorite request to the bar, that make spaces in the bar safe for women to practice. We need more women to join the profession. We have more women joining the judiciary. I think it has to be matched with more women joining the legal profession. And there's a reason for my saying it. Many of the complex issues that society faces today can't definitely be handled by male lawyers or male judges. It requires the emotional intelligence of women, and we may even talk of the third gender. So these are again issues of the future. Amongst us, we have many who don't identify themselves as male or female, but they also have a place in society. Their rights have been fully recognized. They have full citizenship and full personhood, like all of us. And with this recognition, we must make sure that the bar is democratic, the bar is plural, the bar is inclusive, the bar is diverse. So all that we like to see in the judiciary, we must see in the bar. All that we like to see in society, we must see in the bar. So that is how we move forward towards a healthy and bright future. So Happy New Year to each one of you. Happy 2022. I'm sure we'll have better news coming in the year to come. Thank you. Thank you.